All right, today we are jumping into one of the shortest, but also one of the most fiery letters in the entire New Testament, the book of Jude. It's only 25 verses long, but wow, it packs a punch. Jude delivers this urgent warning that you'll see feels just as relevant today as it did 2,000 years ago. So let's just start with this question, because it's at the very heart of Jude's letter. Think about the things you believe in most deeply. Now, what if the real danger to those beliefs wasn't some big, obvious enemy on the outside, but was actually a kind of quiet poison coming from people who claim to be on your team? That is the exact crisis that made Jude pick up his pen and write. So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at why this warning was so urgent. Then, we'll identify the hidden threat that was causing all the trouble. After that, we'll see how Jude uses some old-school history to prove his point. Then we get to the good stuff, his call to action. And we'll wrap it all up with the incredible promise that he closes his letter with. Okay, first up, an urgent warning. Let's dig into why this letter feels less like a friendly note and more like a fire alarm being pulled. Now, get this. The author, Jude, was actually the half-brother of Jesus. But notice what he calls himself. He doesn't pull the, hey, I'm the brother of the boss card. Nope. He introduces himself as a servant of Jesus Christ. Right from the start, that tells you everything about his mindset. He's all about Jesus' authority, not his own family connection. So Jude tells us his original plan was to write a really positive, happy letter about their shared salvation. But he had to totally scrap that idea. Something had happened. A crisis was brewing, and he felt this intense need to write this letter instead, a letter begging them to contend for the faith. And that word, contend, it's an athletic term. It means to fight, to struggle for something. This wasn't a gentle suggestion, it was a command to get in the ring and defend the truth. Which brings us right to the problem itself, the hidden threat. What was this danger that had everyone so rattled? What was lurking inside the church? Well, here's the scary part. These weren't obvious enemies. They were false teachers who had snuck into the church, almost like spies. And they had a two-part mission. First, they took the beautiful idea of God's grace and twisted it into a permission slip to do whatever they wanted. And second, they flat out denied the authority of Jesus Christ. And Jude does not hold back when he describes these people. He unleashes a series of vivid metaphors that are just brutal. He calls them hidden reefs, a terrifying image if you're a sailor, right? The unseen danger that can completely wreck your ship. He calls them waterless clouds and fruitless trees. They look promising, but they deliver nothing. They're all show. And finally, my favorite, he calls them wandering stars. You see, ancient sailors navigated by the fixed stars. A wandering star, or a planet, was useless for navigation. It had no reliable direction. That's who these teachers were, leading people nowhere. And it's easy to think of this as some ancient problem, but it's not. This warning is timeless. Anytime you hear a version of Christianity that's basically anything goes, where grace means you don't have to worry about how you live, that's the modern echo of what Jude was fighting. He's reminding us that real grace doesn't give us a license to sin, it gives us the power to leave it behind. So, to prove just how seriously God takes this kind of rebellion, Jude doesn't invent some new argument. He actually reaches back into their shared history, the Old Testament, and pulls out 3 killer examples of God's judgment. He's essentially saying, hey, don't just take my word for it, look at the track record. His examples are so powerful. First, he points to the people of Israel. God miraculously saved them from slavery in Egypt, but they were later destroyed in the wilderness because of their unbelief. The lesson? A great past doesn't give you a free pass for the present. Second, he brings up the fallen angels. These beings had a position of incredible honor, right there with God, but when they rebelled, they were judged. The lesson there? Nobody is too important or too powerful to be held accountable. And third, he points to Sodom and Gomorrah, cities destroyed for their shameless sin. And the lesson there is sobering. God is incredibly patient, but his patience does have an end. Okay, so after laying out the serious threat and reminding them of the consequences, Jude completely shifts gears. He doesn't leave them in fear. He gives them a call to action. He spells out exactly how they, the faithful ones, are supposed to respond. And he gives them 4 clear, practical things to do. Think of it like a spiritual survival guide. First, build yourselves up in the faith. Know what you believe and why. Second, pray in the Holy Spirit. This is about connecting with God on his terms, with his power. Third, keep yourselves in God's love. How? Through obedience. And fourth, wait for the mercy of Jesus. Basically, live with one eye on eternity. This is the foundation. This is the defense against false teaching. But it's not just about defending yourself. Jude calls for this really careful, really wise balance in how they treat people who are getting led astray. He says, look, show mercy, but be smart about it. Rescue people, but be careful you don't get burned in the process. It all comes down to this classic principle. Hate the sin that is destroying them, but never, ever stop loving the person. It's about holding truth and love in perfect tension. So after all the warnings, all the history, all the commands, Jude ends his letter not by focusing on our struggle, but by shifting the spotlight entirely. He closes with this incredible explosion of praise, reminding us that ultimately, we are kept by his power. He finishes with what's called a doxology, and it is truly one of the most beautiful passages in the entire Bible. Just listen to this. Now to him who is able to keep you from stumbling and to present you blameless before the presence of his glory with great joy. Let's just break down the hope packed into that one sentence. It's God who is able to keep you. Your spiritual safety in the end doesn't depend on how well you fight, but on how well he holds you. He is going to finish the work he started in you. And because of all that, he, and he alone, gets all the glory. It's the perfect end. So if you boil this entire intense little letter down to one thing, it's this. There is one single unified faith that has been passed down through the generations, and that faith is absolutely worth fighting for. It's worth defending from anything that would try to twist it or tear it down. And that really leaves us with a big question to chew on, doesn't it? Jude wrote this almost 2,000 years ago, but in our own time, an age full of confusion and compromise, his challenge hits home harder than ever. So what truth is worth defending?
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really helps us.